pattern day is always so exciting, and this pattern is all about function. One of the things I really hate when I'm traveling is having to lay my shampoo bottles, hairspray bottles down flat in a bag. And so I designed a bag where all of my essentials stay upright. This is the Eva Beauty Bag. It comes in a small and a large size. The smaller size is for airplane travel, whenever you need to keep the bottles at a minimum. They fit perfectly in here. And then the large is for everyday travel when you're just traveling in your car. You can bring your large size shampoo, hairspray, whatever kind of other needs you might have. So we're going to go over the inside of this bag, how it works. It's very customizable. I show you in the pattern how to quilt the zigzag design. However, you could certainly use a statement piece, a really beautiful fabric maybe that you've been hanging on to, wondering what you're going to do with, or you could also embroider something on the front of either one of these bags. So let's go over how the contents fit in here, and then we're going to go over pattern pieces. So as I mentioned, the Eva Beauty Bag comes in two sizes, large and small. When you unzip the bag, you have storage in here for all of your travel essentials. All of your shampoo bottles, all of your makeup brushes, whatever you may need, toothbrushes, etc. All of these pockets in here are customizable. The small size is for travel size bottles, okay? So again, you can put all sorts of things in here, and this is just a small portion of what I have in my travel size, airplane size bag. The large size is for car travel. It's for larger everyday bottles that you tend to use, and they're tall. They usually don't fit in smaller bags. A lot of times you don't want to have to transfer your items to travel size bags when you're just going in the car for a couple of days. So this bag will fit large bottles, your large cans, your large hairspray, whatever you have that is regular size will fit in this size bag. So this bag is all about function with a designer twist. It's really a gorgeous bag, and I hope you really get creative with this bag. I can't wait to see what you make with it. Make sure you post it on the Simply Classic Bag Making community on Facebook. And now we're going to go ahead and go over pattern pieces. We're going to start out by going over pattern pieces, and the very first thing you have is a front and back. Now I'm doing this in our aged brown, and I'm going to quilt on this with a sand colored Tex 45 thread. I am going to make this on my Burnette. It's going to really contrast nicely. So we have two main pieces, and because I'm quilting it, I do have some foam on the back, and I just adhere this with some 505 temporary adhesive spray. Now this pattern is written for adhesive lining because you really want something that's water resistant or waterproof. A waterproof canvas would do well also if you would like to do that. And also, of course, if you'd like to use a cotton or linen or something, you could certainly do that as well. You also have two lining pieces for your front and back. You have gusset pieces, and for the gusset pieces, you have two in your main fabric. Now, when you put your stabilizer on, you have one large piece of stabilizer that you're going to center on the back. And you're going to center it in this longest area. The second piece of stabilizer is going even with these top two corners. Okay, so the top edge of the stabilizer is going to be even with these two corners. It's going to give you about a ½ inch below here. So you're going to do that on both pieces, and then you also have two lining pieces in the gusset as well. You then have bottom pieces, and the bottom piece is the main fabric and your lining fabric. You're going to have some stabilizer on the back as well. Now, you do not necessarily have to use any kind of Decaville heavy or anything like that here. You can just use a medium weight stabilizer. You're going to center that on the bottom, and then of course you're going to have a piece of lining as well. You're going to have two handle pieces. Nothing on the back of those, of course. You're going to have a 20-inch zipper for the small with 2 pulls. And then for the inside, you're going to have some pocket pieces. Now you have 2 pocket pieces that are perfect squares. Okay. Then you have 2 pocket pieces that are a little bit longer. Same height as these. This is the accordion pocket pieces. Again, 2 of them. And these are the slip pocket pieces. Now, if you're using waterproof canvas, of course you do not need to interface it with anything. If you're using a cotton, linen, or something like that, you are going to want to interface these with some woven interfacing. Because I'm using adhesive lining, I'm not going to need any kind of interfacing for this bag. And that is it. It's a very light hardware and light piece bag. Super easy to do. The other thing we're going to need is some binding. And my secret weapon for binding is pre-made black binding. Now the reason why I use black is because if you need to stitch over an area, you can do that and nobody is going to see it. You're just going to make sure you use black thread when you stitch this on and you'll be good to go. You can buy this by the 55-yard length if you would like to, if you happen to use binding a lot, but you really do want a bias binding because of the curves involved. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our Eva bag. The first thing we want to do, like with most bags, is to go ahead and work on the handles. The handles are fairly short, and you could certainly make them longer if you want to, but this is more of like a little grab bag style than anything else. So I drew a line down the center, and I'm just going to put some double-sided tape, and I'm just going to go ahead and fold this long edge up just shy of the line all the way down. And when I fold this edge up, I'm going to leave a small space so that when I turn the handle, it'll have room to turn without bunching up. Go ahead and wonder clip this in place. Now, as I mentioned, I'm using my Bernette machine to make this bag tonight, and it is using a Tex 45 thread in the color Sand. This is the aged faux leather that we have in brown. I really think it's a beautiful, anything aged I think is just so classic. We also have this in several other colors if you are interested in that. And then the thread again I'm using is a Tex 45 in the color Sand, using a size 90 14 leather needle. And I'm going to start out with a stitch length somewhere around 5. So what we're going to do on these handles is to go ahead and stitch down both sides. Now, if you want to do a decorative stitch, you could certainly do 2 lines of stitching. That is totally up to you. One of the things that the Bernette has is this edge guide. So what you will do, if you have one, is to go ahead and just screw in the edge guide wherever you want your edge to be. And of course, we're doing this at 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to repeat that to stitch the other handle. The handles are complete. We're going to set this aside and we're going to talk about quilting. Now, These front pieces do not have to be quilted, just like I said in the beginning. You could certainly do something different with this, meaning use a statement piece of fabric or do some embroidery, whatever you prefer. As we run through the small section, the large section has slightly different measurements, so if you decide in the future you'd like to make a large, we'll probably do another video to show you how to do that. But all of the stuff, all the measurements I'm giving you right now are for the large, or for the small. The construction of the bag is exactly the same, so no different there. It's just, you know, your placement is sometimes a little bit different. So what we're going to do is, in order to do a zigzag pattern, we need to make a checkerboard design, or just checkerboard on this piece. So I'm going to use a 1-inch ruler to do that. And all I'm going to do is start from one side, and actually I always like to start from the center just in case. So let's go ahead and mark the center. And we're going to draw a line down the center and then go 1 inch out from there. And of course I'm using my silver marking pen, so I'm just going to use my 1-inch ruler to do a line either direction. Okay, and do the same thing to this side. And then after you make your vertical lines, we need to make horizontal lines. Make sure you start from the bottom on this one. Okay, don't start from the middle and go in either direction. You want to start from the bottom, because the top, our handles are going to be put on, and so it really doesn't matter if the pattern is off a little bit at the top, or if it's not exactly symmetrical, because the handles are going to be up there. We're going to stitch a line. I mean, it's going to kind of change a little bit. So we're just going to go ahead and do our lines. And when I'm making these marks, I'm not pressing really hard with the silver marking pen. I'm just kind of lightly dragging it across, just enough to make a line, because all of these lines have to come off. Okay. So our next thing is we want to start from the center, and you want to draw a line from this intersection point down to the bottom on both sides. So I'm just going to place my ruler from one edge of the square to the other, draw a line, and these are going to be the actual lines that we quilt on. Make sure I can see what I'm doing here. Okay. And then from here, we're going to go from this point that we left off and go up to the other side to make the zigzag pattern. And we're going to come down. Now, obviously in the corner, you don't have a square point to mark to, so you're just going to kind of go to the center of this curve. Okay, then what you're going to do is go up to the next point and do the exact same thing. You're going to go in the same direction and do your zigzags once again. And of course, when you do this last one, you're going to go to the intersection of the line below it. Now you could certainly use chalk here. You don't have to use a silver marking pen. So whatever you have on hand, just make sure that it will come off of your project, whatever you may be using. So I'm going to take a little shortcut here. Now that I see the design, I'm just going to do all of the lines in one direction. And I'm going to turn and do them this way. here. And then I have one more set on each side. And then we're going to stitch on our diagonal lines. Now typically when I'm quilting on faux leather, I like to use a little bit larger stitch length. This is not a construction stitch length, it's more of a decorative stitch length. So you don't have to worry about being so small in your stitches. You really want it to be pretty. And that's the good thing about the bonded nylon thread. It's got a little bit of sheen to it and it really makes the quilting look nice. So we're going to go ahead and remove my edge guide and we're going to start quilting. Now I'm going to start in a corner. I'm going to go up to the point, leave my needle down, turn and come down, go up and go across the entire piece. Then I'm going to pick up over here on this side and do the same thing and go across the entire piece. Making sure that I start and stop directly on my points. And there I have the first row of quilting done. So I'm going to do the same thing on the next row. There's the second. So I'm going to continue on until I'm through quilting this entire piece. Once you're through quilting one side, go ahead and quilt the other, and then wipe all of your lines off, and your front and back pieces are complete. If you want to put a bag tag, you probably would put it down here, and of course the other spot might be up here at the top, wherever you prefer. So we're going to move on to the gusset, and the gusset is where we put the zipper on. Go ahead and grab one of your main gusset pieces, your gusset lining, and your zipper. Now I like to use double-sided tape for this part. You don't have to do that. Whenever I'm using my semi-industrial machine, I use a less sticky tape. So typically I use the Hyperstick Wawak tape, but whenever I use this machine, I do a tape that I actually get on Amazon at a sign company, and it works a little bit better with my machines, my domestic machines, and I'm able to cut it with my thumb, as you see. So go ahead and put some 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape along the top of your gusset. Go ahead and remove the backing from the tape and place your zipper face down, centered on the gusset. You want to match up your edges. Don't stretch your zipper, just go ahead and lay it down. Not quite centered. I'm going to go ahead and, you can certainly mark the centers to do this. We are going to even it up once we stitch it on, so it's not exact, it's okay. Okay, once you have that in place, go ahead and place some double-sided tape on your lining piece. And then we're going to put this face down on the wrong side of the zipper. Now when you place this on, you want to make sure your centers match up. And then of course you can use a couple of wonder clips if you'd like. And you can certainly use wonder clips instead of double-sided tape if you prefer. Okay, we are now going to stitch this using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and it's super important to make sure you use a 1/4 inch. If you prefer, if you'd like, you can go ahead and mark that on this lining piece. So it never hurts to mark your seam allowances, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to go ahead and do that myself. Obviously this is the part that you're going to see. This is going to be the main kind of almost part of the bag because it's the top and the sides. So I want to make sure I'm lined up really well. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch. From here, go ahead and open up your seam. Now this adhesive lining has paper on the back. We're not going to remove that paper just yet. We want to go ahead and clip this wrong sides together, and we're going to top stitch. that's top stitched, I'm going to remove my clips. Now I'm going to go ahead and peel the paper off. We're just going to stick this down. Go ahead and smooth it out. And sometimes I find that a old credit card works well to kind of smooth these edges out. Get all the wrinkles out. Okay, and we're going to repeat that process to attach the other side of the gusset to the other side of the zipper. Peel the backing off. Go ahead and lay it on the other side of the zipper and make sure that your centers match up here. Don't pull on your zipper, just lay it right on top. And then I'm going to repeat to attach the lining. Go ahead and draw in your seam allowance. If you prefer, if you'd like. And the seam allowance does change a little bit throughout this pattern. It's between 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch depending on where you're stitching. So make sure you kind of pay attention to that as we go through this. Okay, go ahead and turn. We're going to clip and then we'll top stitch. backing off the adhesive lining. Now, if you are not using adhesive lining, then what you'll do is baste these sides closed. If you're using a waterproof canvas or something, you know, similar to that, that would be what you would do. Easy enough. Good thing about the adhesive lining is it's nice and thin, and it's waterproof. You pour water on it and it's just going to roll off. Okay. Now, what's going to happen probably is you're going to have a little bit where you're off. Okay, see my zipper sticks out just a tiny little bit. My lining sticks out a little bit. That's not a problem. Just go ahead and even these edges up on both sides. I mean, you see I'm barely cutting anything off, but it's just enough to kind of even it out. So we have the gusset. Now, don't forget, you need to put on your zipper pulls. And you're going to put them going in opposite directions. So you're going to put one on this side, and one on the other side. Okay, so from here we're going to attach our bottoms. So to attach the bottom, you're going to take your main part of your bottom piece and you're going to clip it to the gusset right sides together. Go ahead and flip it over, take your lining piece and do the same thing. Attach it to the lining right sides together. So now your gusset is sandwiched in between your two bottom pieces. Now this is where we're changing our seam allowance. We're going to stitch this using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So this is what we have. Let's go ahead and take our other end of our bottom, and you're going to have to pull the gusset and go ahead and clip it to the other side of the gusset. And then we're going to do the same thing with the lining. Now, to get the lining piece over there, you're going to have to kind of curl this gusset up on itself, but you want to make sure the right side of your bottom is against the right side of your gusset, meaning the linings are together, the lining right sides are together, and your main fabric right sides are together. Okay, so you have this kind of funny looking thing, all scrunched up. And we're going to stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So from here, you're just going to flip this out. And what that's going to do is it's going to put the right side of your bottoms, or the wrong side, excuse me, of your bottoms together. Now you want to top stitch on your bottom piece. And it's usually easier to do that with this inside out. So just flip this inside out. And then I'm going to just move this gusset out of the way, and I'm going to top stitch here. And then I'm going to move it out of the way, and I'm going to top stitch here. So from here, go ahead and flip your gusset around again. You can go ahead and reach in and remove the paper backing from the adhesive lining and stick your lining down. Now again, if you're not using adhesive lining, if you're using a waterproof canvas or a cotton, you're just going to baste the sides closed. And by stitching, it perforates the paper, so it's really easy to peel off. Okay, and then we have our gusset. So now we are going to move on to the lining. So we're going to set this aside, and let's talk about lining. So for our lining, of course, we need our front and back lining pieces, we need our slip pocket pieces, and we need our accordion pocket pieces. So we're going to start out with our slip pocket pieces. And since it's a perfect square, all we're going to do is go ahead and peel a little bit of the backing off of the adhesive lining on one side. It doesn't matter which one because it's square. And you're going to fold the adhesive lining to the wrong side up on itself by a 1/2 inch. Doesn't have to be exact, as long as it's about a 1/2 inch. You're going to go to the opposite side, so just turn it around, and we're going to do the same thing. Okay, once that's done, what I like to do, if you're using adhesive lining, is go ahead and fold this in half. Increase it, because it helps when you peel the paper off, helps you know where the center is. So I'm just going to go ahead and increase this. And then peel the back off of the lining and match your two edges that you folded under a 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to fold this over. Now once this adhesive lining sticks to itself, it's pretty much stuck. So I like to do this edge first and then just kind of push it up and smooth it right out. Okay, so we're going to do exactly the same thing with the other slip pocket, which is the 10 by 10 piece. I'm going to fold this in half first. Once they're all folded over, we're going to top stitch at the top and we're going to top stitch at the bottom. The bottom is going to be where we folded our edges, so we're just going to kind of stitch that closed and then top stitch it at the top. Grab your one of your main pieces. And what you want to do is 1 inch from the bottom, you're going to place the slip pocket along the side of the front piece and wonder clip it in place. And then just using an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, just go ahead and stitch this on. This is where you need to get creative and make this especially for you. What I suggest is if you have some travel size bottles that you use often, go ahead and get it and go ahead and fit it in and make sure that the hole that you place matches up. This is customizable. You can use one side, really, you can do really small, which we'll do on the next side, for makeup brushes, maybe your toothbrush, whatever it may be. You can make it larger for shampoo bottles, hairspray bottles, again, whatever it is that you use. So you basically want to go ahead and create a gap, okay, for lack of a better word, that your shampoo bottle will fit in, or again, whatever it may be. And then you're going to stitch right beside the edge of that spot. So I'll get one of the bottles and we can kind of test that out. So here is a travel bottle that I tend to use, and so what I will do is just go ahead and figure out where I need to stitch for that. Leave a little bit of space. You don't want it so tight that you can't get it in and out. So once you determine kind of where the bottle is, give yourself a little bit of extra so that that bottle will slide in easily. And then just go ahead and stitch. So now that will fit in there nicely. You can make a second one and then a third one, as many as you need and as large as you need. Now, if you find that you need extra on the pocket, what I would maybe suggest you do is ahead of time, go ahead and see how much space you need in these bottles. I have found that a 10-inch pocket pretty much does pretty good with most travel bottles, but if you have something that's extra large, you may want to extend this pocket a little bit so that you have enough space to do all of your gaps. And they don't all have to be the same size, obviously. Go ahead and do a second one. And then I'm going to do one more, and this one's going to be a little smaller, and this one will probably fit my toothbrush. And I'm just going to make sure that this is even with the edge and stitch. Now, if you want to make yours smaller, where you don't have such large gaps, you may have extra pocket, and if you do, just stitch where you need to and cut off the excess. So in my case, these are my 3 pockets. On this side, you could do 2 pockets, or you could do several more pockets, however you would like to do this, okay? So on the accordion pocket, what you're going to do is one edge is 12 inches. The other edge is 10, right? You're gonna go ahead and fold it so that your 12-inch edges match. There's no need to fold this edge up. All we're going to do is fold this in half. Let's go ahead and remove the paper. We're going to go ahead and match our 12-inch edges together and smooth this out. Once everything's smoothed out, you're going to go ahead and don't worry about the raw edges. You're just going to top stitch along the top edge of your accordion pocket. From here, you want to measure in 3.5 inches along the top edge and the bottom edge and make a small mark. And you're going to fold the pocket to the wrong side if your fabric has a right and wrong side. You're going to fold it to the wrong side, right along those marks you made. And you want to fold both edges in the same direction. So in my case, it's going to the back here and go to the back here. Okay, so what we're going to do is top stitch 1/8 of an inch down each folded edge. Once that's done, go ahead and unfold your pocket, and you want to take these folded edges and place them. It's going to be between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch from the edge. And the goal here is for your accordion pocket to measure 6 inches across when you're done. It's right at 6 inches. And you're going to take your front piece or back piece that you already have your slip pockets on, and you're going to place it right on top, and you're going to clip all the way around. Now, when you clip, obviously you're just clipping the raw edge to the raw edge of your front and or back piece. Bottom, same thing. You can go ahead and stitch these gusset pieces down, baste them down first if that helps. And then you're going to go ahead and wonder clip the other side. And then we're going to go ahead and stitch this accordion pocket onto our lining piece. Okay, so stitch all the way around. Now you do have a curved edge, of course, in the lining piece is curved. Your accordion pocket's not. But once we sew this on, we'll go ahead and just clip that off. And I'm just using 1/8 of an inch here. Remove the wonder clips from the top, and now you have places for, of course, your shampoo bottles, and then you also have a place for other things like your compact, etc. Okay. So we're going to repeat that same process for the other lining piece, making as many pockets as you want on your slip pocket, and then you're going to attach your accordion pocket in exactly the same way. Once you have both of your lining pieces done, go ahead and cut your curve out of your accordion pocket, your curved corners here. Okay. So now we are good to go with both of our lining pieces, and this is, again, as customizable as you would like. I ended up doing some smaller ones over here for makeup brushes and such. So it is up to you, and kind of the fun part of this. You have some leeway with the exterior, and you have some leeway with the lining. So we are going to put all this together now. And we're going to start out by putting our handles on our main part of our bag. So I'm going to measure in. I'll give you this measurement in the pattern. And then I'm going to clip it and baste these handles in place. Once that's completed, we're going to go ahead and attach these to the gusset. So take your, it doesn't matter which piece, we're going to go ahead and put the right sides together with this part of the gusset that kind of sticks out. And then we're going to take one of our lining pieces, again, it really doesn't matter which one, and we're going to put that right side together with the lining. And this right here is a seam that we're going to stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once that is stitched, we are going to open this up. We're going to top stitch using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now you can go ahead and wonder clip around the bag just to kind of hold everything in place while you top stitch, but don't remove the paper backing yet. We're going to do that after we top stitch. once that's done, go ahead and remove the paper backing. And of course your paper backing has got several lines of stitching because of the pockets you sewed together, or you sewed on the other side, which is fine. It's just going to be a perforated edge, so you may have to take it off in a couple of different passes. So I'm just finishing removing the last of this paper. And honestly, if I don't get every little bit off, I don't worry too much about it. Just want to get the big pieces off. Okay, so from here, go ahead and place your lining and your main part of your bag together. And of course, if you're using a cotton canvas, a waterproof canvas or something other than adhesive lining, go ahead and baste this closed. Okay, we're going to do exactly the same thing to attach the other side. Just sandwiching our gusset right in between our front or back and the lining. Making sure linings are right sides together and main fabric is right sides together. And then stitch using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Turn and top stitch. And then remove your paper backing and go ahead and adhere this side down. Once you have the other side down and ready to go, we're going to turn the bag inside out. And if you haven't already found the center of your front and back, which you should have in the beginning when we did the quilting, go ahead and find the center of the bottom, both sides, and then also find the center of your bottom piece. Okay, so from here, you're going to clip the bottom to the front or back, matching up those center marks. And then you're going to come to the very top and fold your gusset on itself up here at the top and wonder clip down. And do the same thing on the other side. Okay, in order to get your corners to fit around your, or your gusset to fit around your corners, you're gonna have to make little snips in your gusset. Always snip your straight edge, which in our case is the gusset. So I'm just gonna make, and this is gonna only be a 1/4 inch seam allowance that we sew this. So you really want to make tiny little snips. And then go ahead and fit that gusset in. And you do the same thing on this side. Just tiny, about 1/8 of an inch little snips. Okay, and then we're going to stitch this using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, if you are a quarterly bag making subscription box member, you have received in your kit a pair of these hemostats. And I like using these a lot of times when I'm going around really sharp corners, like the one on this gusset, to help hold the gusset in place. So you'll see how I use these. So as I approach this corner, I'm going to go ahead and take these hemostats and put it on the gusset, just at the very tip here, and they lock in place. So what's going to happen is as you squeeze them, they're going to lock. Okay, so now they can't come out. And as you stitch, just kind of lightly pull to hold this in place. Then you can undo them, turn a little bit, reposition your gusset, and come back around. And if you need to hook them here, you can do that. Once you're done, just kind of peek in here and make sure your corners look good and you don't have any tufts or anything. Which everything looks good to me. Now, Before we put our binding on, you really want to make sure that all your edges are nice and even, because if they're not, your binding is going to have a hard time. So just go around and make sure that everything looks even, and if not, go ahead and cut it so that it is. If anything, it might be around your corners some. Sometimes there might be a little spot kind of sticking out. Okay, once you're sure that everything looks good and even, you can move on to the next side, or you can go ahead and put your binding on now. Because I'm using black binding, I'm going to change my thread, and I don't want to do that until I'm through with the other side, so I'm not changing back and forth too many times. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat the process to stitch the other side to the to the gusset, and I have a little bit of lining sticking out here. I'm just going to cut that. Make sure all this looks nice and even. So I'm just cutting the lining even with the main part of the bag. So I'll clip the bottom first, and then I'm going to move up here to the very top of the gusset. Do the same thing on the other side. And then snip your corners. Now, you might be kind of to a point where you need to go ahead and undo your zipper. You can certainly do that. Just clip. You really, when it comes to these corners, you can't make too many clips. You can make them too deep, but you really can't make too many. And whenever you stitch a gusset on, and of course our gusset is partly attached, But you always want to stitch with the gusset up. Makes it easier to get around the corners without getting tucks in them. Alright, so we're going to stitch using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Take the corners slow. Go ahead and adjust as you go. Use those hemostats or your favorite method as you come around these corners. And awl is always a great option as well. Check that, make sure that looks good. Make sure my corners are okay. It looks like all that looks good. All right, so I'm going to make sure everything's even on my seam allowances. I'm sure you saw I had to kind of ease some of this in. The gusset was wanting to move on me, But you see, by doing that, I had no tucks. I don't have any tucks anywhere. You just got to take it a little at a time when you do that. So go ahead and cut these back. And I'm not cutting them back as much as I'm just evening them up. Because we're already at 1/4 inch seam allowance, we really don't need to be any more than that. And if there's a spot where it looks like, you know, maybe you could have gotten a little closer, or something looks off, you can certainly restitch. All right. So now it is binding time. Binding is not everybody's favorite, I know, but in this bag it's kind of essential. And as I mentioned earlier, for me, the secret weapon to binding is using black. Just use black all the time. So I switched my thread color to black, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and just clip a small portion of this on. Now, you do not have to use black binding. You can certainly use whatever color binding you'd like. I'm not great at binding. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. It's just not really my thing. But in this bag, it was essential. And so, you know, that's why I use black. And I don't worry about it being perfect because, you know, the chances of somebody turning your bag inside out or opening it up to inspect your binding are pretty slim. So again, I'm gonna maybe put 2 or 3 clips in just to kind of hold the binding in place to get started. And what I'm going to do is to take the very top and just fold it over at a right angle and start stitching, okay? And then what I'll do is just clip it off even with the binding in the back. So that's how I'm going to start. And then I'm just going to take it slow and go all the way around and stitch this binding on. And the reason why I use black is because if I miss a spot, I can go back and restitch over it without taking it apart, and you can't tell because it's black. And the straight edges are pretty easy. The curve is going to be a little tricky, but you see I didn't wonder clip around the curve. The reason why is because you really want to use bias binding. Bias binding will curve as you tug on it a little bit, and so it should go right around that curve nicely. You don't really have to clip it, you just have to tug on it just slightly. So here I am, I'm just kind of tugging a little bit to go around this curve. I'm going to hold it with my fingers on here. And stitch down to it. And I just came off a little bit right there. I'm just going to stop, back up, and just do it again. Okay, so just come right back on. Okay, so here as we go around this curve, I'm just going to kind of slightly pull on the binding to get it to kind of curve around. Coming to the other corner, so I'm just going to kind of tug on this a little bit. Make sure I have it underneath. And then as I approach the end, I'm just going to do that right angle again. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and clip this off. Cut on my threads. Clip this other side off. Okay, and there is my binding. Is it perfect? Heck no. But that's okay. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing to attach the binding to the other side, and then we will be able to turn our bag. So binding is on both sides. Now we get to turn it, and this is obviously a super easy bag to turn. I'm just going to go ahead and turn this bottom side out. Zip it up. Now, if you would like, if you have access to a rivet press and you would like to go ahead and put rivets on your handles, I do suggest doing that. And all you're going to do is measure up from the seam. I have one little thread here that's driving me crazy. Hold on. See if I can get it. There we go. Okay, so from the seam, you're going to measure up a 1/2 inch. And just put a little dot. You do that on all 4 handles. And then of course you're going to go ahead and rivet on. Now this rivet does go all the way through to the lining. Not a big deal. You know, just kind of helps hold everything in place. Not necessary. Again, if you do not have access to a rivet or a rivet press, you certainly do not need to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and punch some holes here. And when I set the rivet, I'm just going to open this up, stick this whole thing in, and set it through to the back side. And then the bag will be completed. So I'll do that, and then we'll take a look. So here we have it, our completed Eva in the small version. Again, you can use this front panel to quilt on. We did a really super cute zigzag pattern, or you can use a feature fabric or even do some embroidery. The double zipper makes it really nice to open up this bag for all of your toiletry needs. And you saw how we did all of these pockets. Really love this. And actually, I traveled recently and made myself a small Eva. I was surprised at how much I could get in it. I was able to get pretty much everything I needed in it. Now, as an example, I want to show you another quilting pattern that's super easy to do that looks great on this bag. So here's my first version of the Eva. The handles ended up being a little bit different on the final, but I wanted to take the minute to show you this diamond pattern. Instead of being at 45 degrees, I did this one at 60, and look at how cute it came out. This is our aged hot pink, and it was in some of the subscription boxes from last quarter. It's just really a great color. It's a very fun color, obviously very feminine. The brown is a little more masculine, and maybe, you know, you could use it as a man's bag. Either one, you can see how wonderful the bag is. Nothing's laying down. And I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, the Eva. Until next time, everybody, happy sewing.